A German poet, Berthold Albach, said, and I quote, "To acquire money requires valor. To keep money requires prudence." Simply put, different mindsets and skills are required for not only acquiring wealth, but also preserving it. On this episode of Frontiers, we shall take a look at financial prudence and how to apply it in various aspects of daily life. I am Frama Pani, and I warmly welcome you to the program. Our guest is Winston Ekwotu, a management consultant and agribusiness executive. It's a pleasure having you join us on the program.
Thank you very much, Frima.
We will take an excerpt to set the tone for today's discuss.
Money plays a vital role in man's sustenance, thus helping in meeting basic necessities of life, food, shelter, and clothing. Financial prudence is crucial for achieving financial security and stability. Financial experts say it involves making informed decisions, avoiding unnecessary risks, and planning for life's uncertainties. Effective financial planning involves setting aside. Effective financial planning involves setting clear financial goals, assessing one's financial situation, creating a tailored plan for saving, investing wisely, and managing debt. Planning for life events such as buying a house, retirement, or unexpected expenses is also essential. By taking proactive and informed approaches to finance, an individual can achieve set financial goals and secure a brighter financial future.
Once more, we're glad to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Frima.
Let's get into the deal of the day. We're discussing a very interesting issue today, money. I know, of course, money is certainly crucial in our day-to-day living, especially in the times we're in right now. Now, let's take a look at financial success, long-term financial success. What are the most important financial planning considerations for young people that are starting their careers?
Money is something that is at the front burner. We always tell people financial balance, so to speak, is a driver of so many things, even your emotions. So for that reason, it is important that people are financially stable. And when we talk about people who are beginning their careers, you need to ask yourself or set for yourself a goal. Where am I headed in life? What are the things that are important to me? For someone who is just starting out, you would be tempted to want to compare yourself with people who have been down the road. They've gone further than you have gone.
Okay.
So one of the first things we tell people is to be very conscious about the difference between needs and wants. That's the first place, because sometimes we end up spending and even borrowing to satisfy the wants, and we neglect the needs. So that is closely related to what we also call funding of lifestyle.
Okay.
So you have people who spend so much on lifestyle, and in most cases these are just wants. They're not the main things, they're not the necessities. And most importantly, the third thing is learning how to save.
Now, talk to us about the essential components of a budget and how can one create a realistic budget, because you just spoke about spending, needs and wants. Of course, you should have a budget for your needs and your wants. Talk to us about that.
Okay, so we help people plan financially. Part of the things that services we offer is training and helping people transition, especially as you go through your career.
Okay.
And one of the things we tell people is we have a principle of finance which we call the orange principle.
Okay.
That you could treat your money like an orange. The orange has 4 components. It has the juice, the seed, the fiber, and the peel. So if you have that mindset, and what's a budget? It's not something that should be very complicated. A budget is what am I earning and what am I spending on.
Okay.
That's simple. Now, if you have your money like an orange, which has 4 parts, each part should serve a purpose. We tell people the peel should be for God and humanity, whatever it is you believe in. For the Christians, it's tithing. For the Muslims, it's giving alms, whatever it is. And for some people, it's personal social responsibility. And then you have the fiber, which is for your family and your friends, because you don't exist in isolation. You would always have people who need some form of help from you. And then you have the juice, which should be for yourself, spending on yourself, on your needs to keep you stable. And then you have the seed, which is what you save and you invest. It's the seed of the orange that is planted to produce another tree that gives you another orange.
Very interesting concept there, I would
Yes.
say. Now let's talk about savings. As an expert in this field, what percent of one's salary or monthly income or wages should be saved, and how regular should that be?
So we get this question a lot in whenever we have sessions with people. And the truth is, my response is that I cannot give you a percentage of what you should save, because your responsibilities are different from mine. Again, with the orange, you have some oranges that have little juice, and you have the ones that have a lot of juice. A good example, if you're the first of 6 children and you're the only person working and you have several dependents who are in school, your juice would not be so much because you have to take care of people. So what you would save would be different from what someone who is the last of 7 children with very little responsibilities. However, what we tell people and what I would usually advocate is no matter how much you earn, make sure you have something saved up. If you can't save from 100,000 naira a month, you will be unable to save from 1,000,000 naira a month. The percentage, however, is completely dependent on the circumstances surrounding your existence as a person and where you found yourself.
Okay, now still on saving culture, saving mentality.
Yeah.
At what age or at what point do you begin to, start saving?
Start early. You and I, we're already working. It's assumed that we should be saving something now. If you have children, it's good you start teaching them that culture. And one other thing we would usually ask people who say, now waiting, when person done belleful, now person go feel save. If 10% is taken off your salary, would you resign? If you're earning 80,000 naira a month, and for some reason, your employer says, I can only pay 75 now, you would not resign. So what that means is that you can actually save 5,000. So if you have that mindset, you would realize that irrespective of what you earn, irrespective of whether you are fully satisfied or not, you can actually develop the discipline to set aside something every month or periodically. It may be every day, knowing that it is a rainy day fund that may be useful to you either as an emergency or for you to start off something that could produce more. Like I said, it's a seed that when planted, most people, anyone who chews off the seeds of his or her harvest would have nothing to plant in the next planting season.
Talking about the orange principle, the seed you just mentioned, now that is like to signify investment, you said. What are the best investment options for someone who is just starting a job?
For someone who is just starting a job, investment options, depending on the demands of your job, as well as the code of ethics around the job, it would determine where you would put whatever investments you have. And it may not be advisable to have a business that will be as demanding as your work. In some cases, you could look out for the investment houses that have some savings. So they are low risk investments, and obviously they come with lower rewards. And if your risk appetite is very high and you have a big bite for risk, then you check out for some of the very high risk investments that are out there, except things that you don't understand. We have a lot of Ponzi schemes out there and a lot of things that are crashing every day. If you have no understanding of these things, what's it called now, the cryptocurrencies and this rest of them, if you understand them and you have the risk appetite for it and you've been able to look through everything, you can go into that. But if you don't understand it and your philosophy is safety first, then it's best to have a conversation with maybe your bank. They may have some mutual funds out there for you. They may have fixed deposits for you. These are low risk and they are also low rewards, but there is some degree of safety for you who is just starting.
To help people make informed decisions, what are the benefits, and drawbacks of different saving options, such as fixed deposits or mutual funds?
I think one major drawback based on experience is inflation.
Okay.
When inflation rises to a certain level, sometimes when you get out what you've invested, you realize that it's not, you may not see a significant boost in the income. That is one aspect of it. So what we would also advise people, or my advice to anyone, is to invest in knowledge, get to understand and study and be abreast of the situations. I have a colleague who says that he would rather invest in shorter durations. So rather than taking a deposit for a fixed deposit or an investment for a year, he takes it on a monthly basis. It may be smaller, but it gives him that flexibility to immediately change course if he sees that things are going in a particular direction. The economic landscape can be pretty dynamic. It's not something that people can accurately predict and say, yes, this is it. Sometimes things happen in the middle of the year and things change. So these are some of the drawbacks that can come. When such economic policies or indicators are changed, it can actually affect the investment that you have made. So you have to be mindful of that and you have to watch out for that. But being knowledgeable is something that will help. It's a great asset.
Right. We'll pause here and take a short break. This is Frontiers, and we are taking a look at financial prudence. The conversation continues shortly. Now, let's pick up where we left the conversation before we took that break. Housing is one's basic needs. How should individuals go about this plan, especially with the rising cost in housing in the country right now?
Thank you. Now, the real estate sector. Yes, it's the only estate that is real, as they would say. And it's one investment that helps you to hedge very well against inflation. Now, when people are thinking of buying a house, you need to take several things into account. One is the location. Looking out for the level of development in the area, it will help you predict the value in the near future. That's the first thing. The second thing you would look at as an individual is the size of your family or the purpose for which you want to use the property. Now, if it's where you want to live, I remember asking this question to a group of persons, if a property is an asset or a liability. And it's really dependent on the use, the purpose. If a single person goes to buy a duplex, a 5-bedroom duplex, it's more of a liability than it is an asset because of the cost of maintaining that property through his or her stay. It only becomes an asset when it's producing value and generating income.
Okay.
But when you look at the cost of maintaining the property, you realize that it's, especially if it does not fit that purpose. So you have to be very mindful of the purpose, the location. when
Okay.
you are going into buying a property for yourself. But I absolutely agree. It's one of the most liberating things,
Okay.
having a roof over your head. I usually tell people you wouldn't know how fast the year runs except you're a tenant. Because when you pay the first rent in January, by the time people are laughing and it's November, December, all of a sudden you're wondering, the year has gone by so fast because you have
Right.
to pay the rent again. So, but once you are able to own a property, it's liberating. That much I can say. However, you need to be sure that you have not inherited a massive liability.
Taking a look at life, health and disability insurance, how can individuals, ensure they have adequate insurance coverage, in the event of illness or job loss?
So I think insurance in this part of the world is something that people are still skeptical about. It is something that people are not as knowledgeable about yet. However, it works because I
Okay.
have benefited from it. I have seen people, all businesses that we run, we have implemented insurance plans for our members of staff because we found that with the rising cost of living, people spent a lot on healthcare. And when you actually go to study the insurance companies out there, you will find that some of them actually have very affordable plans that can actually provide healthcare for people in some private hospitals that you would actually not think some people from a particular part of this country could afford.
Okay.
Because I know, for example, I have a member of my team who is not earning as much, but this person has access to healthcare from one of the prominent private clinics in the FCT. And it's thanks to a particular insurance company that we are using. And the premium is not as neck breaking as some people would think. So I believe that if people actually take time to research, you could actually find some of these policies out there that could help you, even in planning for your unborn children, in planning for, because the thing with illnesses, and globally, it is said that many people working are one major health expense away from severe poverty.
Let's look at, how one can diversify investment portfolios, to minimize risk, especially with all manner of investment platforms coming up daily.
So, risk, there's risk in everything. And risk managers will tell you that there are several things you could do with risk. I can't remember the exact number now, but I know you can either accept the risk, transfer the risk, avoid it, or mitigate the risk. And so when it comes to investment and having a portfolio, again, if it's something you're not familiar with, there are professionals out there who actually run as a business investments and they help people with diversifying and help people with managing investment portfolios. Now that's one way of transferring the risk to these persons, and you essentially share in the profits that comes out of there. You just have to really research. So that's why investing in knowledge is something we cannot overemphasize. So if you research, you will find some firms out there that actually manage portfolios for people and manage investments for people, so you can transfer the risk to them and share the rewards with them.
All right. Now, you've been in business for a long time. Talk to us. What's the experience like for you?
It's interesting. One of the things that I have learned as an entrepreneur in Nigeria and a business person is the need to be resilient. Another thing is to be focused. And I would say the third thing is to be positive minded. So let's speak with resilience. Now, when you start off just about any business, you may likely experience a long period of drought. So focus is, I'm going to be on this and I'm going to pursue through. Yes, you can change the strategy, you can change course when necessary, but remain resolute. We always tell people there is no good business or bad business, there is just a bad strategy. The third thing is the positive mind. So when you are a positive minded person, it allows you to think of possibilities and be more optimistic. So you are constantly seeing the glass half full as opposed to half empty. So resilience, focus, and positive mindedness.
All right. Share with us some of the mistakes that you would advise people, you from your experience, to stay away from.
One of the first things you should avoid, if you can, is taking a loan to start.
Okay.
Loans should be for expansion. Because when you take a loan or you take money from family and friends to start, the pressure is even higher. Yeah, some people say pressure is good, but some could be very destructive. So making sure that you are starting small, and that is what takes me to the next. The savings that we're talking about and having that culture, that should be your initial capital. It's what you use to start small. And when you've built it to a certain level and people can see the traction, naturally, things will take a natural course.
Okay.
You would know it is time to expand. And then when it's time to expand and you want to go the loan route, then you need to seek professional guidance and counsel. So you don't end up getting yourself immersed in so much debt. So seek guidance, seek counsel.
Before I let you go, whatever begins must end, of course. Let's turn our focus to retirement from work life. Now, what are the key factors to consider when planning for retirement?
We have sessions with people pre-retirement and post-retirement.
Okay.
So we found that there are 5 realities that come with retirement. And depending on your level of preparation, they could be stepping stones and they could be devils. So when you are approaching that stage, several things you need to start thinking about. From experience with people that I've interacted with that are about to and those who have retired, the first challenge that I see for many of them is inactivity.
Okay.
The second thing is cash flow. You're receiving salaries at a particular date every month, and all of a sudden that stops, and you don't have anything to fall back on. You've not had any secondary or third cash flow coming in. It's a major issue. The third thing is the age. It begins to show up and it begins to rear its head. The fourth thing is the subject of identity. So many people spend most of their working lives associating themselves very closely with where they work. And all of a sudden, you can no longer say you're a presenter. You now have to use the phrase or the word former or ex or retired. It starts to create some emotional imbalance. The fifth one, I dare say, is also relationships. Sometimes we establish relationships only within the work, and it's office to office. So we've not taken time to build personal relationships with people. So we tell people when you're approaching that period of your life, you need to start asking yourself very, very serious questions.
Okay.
Find out who you are, and if you've not been saving, you still have maybe 2, 3, 4 years or a couple of months, start saving and start thinking of what you are going to do. Otherwise, these 5 things I've just described will become your devils.
Mr. Winston, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much, Freema, for having me.
We have been taking a look at financial prudence in managing life events, and our guest has been Winston Ekwotu, a management consultant and agribusiness executive. Thanks for watching. I am Frama Panye.